is a many-splendored thing. Love brings down heaven on angel wings. Love makes the bells and wedding ring. But let's face it, love is the problem. And here is our lovely, lovelorn columnist and counselor, Miss Barbara Dean.
Well, here we are again, and as always, love is the problem. Seated with me are my two advisors. I'd like to present first our lawyer and lecturer, Helen Sherry.
How do you do?
And to my right, our educator and our writer, Dr. Eleanor Matheny.
How do you do?
And because we are women, we like to have a man around. I'd like to present our man of letters, the male who reads our mail, Freeman Lusk.
Oh, thank you, Barbara Dean. Hello there. And who is our guest today, may I ask?
Well, today you are going to have help because we have a man who's known to all the ladies, a Frenchman, and what a Frenchman, Jacques Bergerac. This is Dr. Eleanor Matheny.
How do you do?
I'm Barbara Dean, and this is Helen Sherry.
Hello.
I know our audience and our panel members remember Jacques for his very wonderful parts in Les Girls and Gigi. And what are you doing now?
Now I just finished a movie for Paramount with Susan Hayward and Jeff Chandler called Thunder in the Sun, which is a story about a group of French Basques people. And actually I am Basque, so I have a very unusual surprise in Hollywood as a Basque to be cast as a Basque.
Wonderful.
Because usually you are Basque and they give the part to an Irish, the Chinese. And it's a story about a group of French people who are crossing America in 1850 to come to California to plant vineyards.
That's very interesting, but we'll have some more questions for you later. And now, Freeman, how about getting into our first letter?
All right. Let's see, here's one. This is from Too Tall. Dear Barbara Dean, I am 5 feet 10 inches tall, and I'm in love with a man who is only 5 feet 6. Do you think there is too much difference between us?
Oh, no, not if she really loves the man. She says in the letter she loves him. How do you feel about it, Helen?
I think actually, as far as size is concerned, it shouldn't make that difference. But we must remember that we're so accustomed to the thought the man always looks upon the woman as the little woman. Doesn't really matter how tall she is. He usually refers to her as the little woman. And then again, there's that primitive instinct in which the man wants to be the head of his family, so accustomed from generations back. The caveman thought of protecting his wife in the cave against all the animals. So having that instinct is very difficult for a man this little to have his friends remember that his wife is tall physically, and it might interfere with their relationship. It really shouldn't. If they have a great deal in common, they can build something. But it would be the exception rather than the rule.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't want to disagree, Helen, but some of the happiest couples I know are couples where the woman is considerably taller than the man.
Don't you think that his man is ahead not because he's 5 inches taller or 5 inches smaller, but because mentally he can be stronger, and because he's ahead and he proves his strength and his intelligence by his personality and not by his physical outlook, and the same is true for the woman.
Well, that's the way it should be. Unfortunately, it doesn't always follow. And it may cause some conflict between them. It may develop a conflict there on his part. He may feel...
Napoleon, for instance, was very tiny, and he was married with Josephine, who was very tall. And anyway, I think he had a great ascendant on her and on many other people, too.
I think that's a good point, if I might chime in here, because a man's stature isn't measured in inches or in feet.
Or a woman's either.
No, that's true.
I'd like to tell you a story about one of the happiest couples I know. She happens to be 5 feet 10 inches tall. He happens to be 5 feet 2 inches tall. And because I know them very well, one day I asked her, I said, how did you and Bob ever get together? And she said, well, we worked in the same office. I thought he was the most wonderful man I had ever known. And I knew he wouldn't call me because I was tall and he was short. So I decided to take things into my own hands. And I called him one night and asked him if he would take me to a party that was going on in our social group. And he gave me the answer I was waiting for. He said, well, if you don't mind going out with a little runt. And I said, well, of course not, if you don't mind going out with a beanpole. And he, seeing it from that point of view, said, well, but you're not a beanpole. Your tallness is a part of you. Your tallness is a part of all that I love and admire in you. And she said, well, but your shortness is a part of you. Your shortness is a part of all that I love and admire in you. And he took me to the party, she said, and that night when we came home, we sat out in front of the house and we talked it all over, and we decided that this was a very silly thing to keep us apart. And of course, they had both learned this wonderful, wonderful lesson, that we don't love people for one physical characteristic or another. We either love a whole person or we have no right to call this love. And I think that's the answer to Too Tall. If she loves him as he is.
Well, there's the answer to that question. Freeman?
Well, let's see what we have here. This is from Worried Widow. Worried Widow. Dear Barbara Dean, I have been married 3 times. My first 2 husbands died. The third just disappeared 3 years ago. I tried to trace him, but I couldn't. Now I don't want to find him. Because I have met a man who is in love with me. He doesn't have any money, but I have enough for us both. The trouble is, I don't have a divorce. I am 61, and he is 65. You think, at our age, we need a legal ceremony. Worried Widow.
Well, let's turn that question over to Our Lady of the Law, Helen Sherry. Helen?
Well, it would be most unwise for her to flaunt conventions. After all, we live in a civilized world with certain rules and regulations. And they, because of their maturity, should remember that others will look upon them as an example. Why encourage gossip or whispering and criticism? It's so needless. She's had 2 husbands who've died. The third one has disappeared. It would be much simpler to file a petition for a divorce on the grounds of desertion. And that way, sever that relationship and marry the man legally so they can build a relationship of understanding and companionship. If she doesn't do it, the real problem would be in the event she died and left an estate or left money. The third husband would appear, and in the eyes of the law, he would be legally entitled to it. So I would certainly advise her to get her divorce on the grounds of desertion and then marry this man and live happily ever afterwards.
You won the case.
I can't see any other answer to that one. And now, Freeman?
Here's the next question. Dear Barbara Dean, you girls can dish it out, but can you take it? Every single girl I know wants to get married. And every married woman I know seems to want a divorce so she can get married again. I've gone with 17 different girls in the last 5 years, and they're all alike. The minute you kiss them, they expect you to pop the question. Isn't that ridiculous? And this is signed, as you might imagine, Mr. Bachelor.
Well, Freeman, first of all, let's ask our guest.
I think it goes a little too far, because I don't think that each time a girl is being kissed, she wants to get married. Do you?
I think maybe he's a little on the conceited side, don't you, Jacques?
Maybe he exaggerates a little.
Jacques, while we're talking about the marital question, you were married to an American girl. Would you marry another American girl?
Yes. I have no restrictions on any race or any civilization.
What would you look for in a girl? Or is that too fast a question?
That's quite a question.
Well, must she cook? Must she cook?
Yes. Well, I would like if she's a very good cook. Yes, but I think one of the most important things I like in a woman, or that European men like in a woman, is to be feminine. You see, and I think a lot of women sometimes have lost some of that quality, which is their main weapon, so to speak.
I hope all our girls tuned in take that to heart. How about looks? Must she be pretty?
Well, I guess so, but we were speaking about that physical outlook earlier in the show, and I think it's we must not give, at least I don't give too much stress on the physical outlook of a woman, because after a number of months or years, whatever it is, you are with someone, I don't think you are as conscious of their either beauty or ugliness or their physical features as you were when you just meet them, but that you see more what they express as a personality.
You've taken a lot of worries away from some of the married women now. And now on to our next question.
All right. Let's see. This one is signed Mrs. K. Dear Barbara Dean, my husband and I adopted a little boy 14 years ago. He is a wonderful, intelligent boy. Recently, he has been attending high school, which is closer to the neighborhood where we used to live. And I am very much afraid that he may find out that we adopted him. I dread the possibility that his faith in our integrity might be deeply hurt, especially in view of his close relationship with his father, who has always been his ideal, and to the fact that he has stated many times that he intends to follow in his dad's footsteps. I don't know what to do. Before confiding in him, should we wait until he is older and has more understanding and more wisdom? Or should we tell him now before he learns it from someone else? What should we do? Can you help us?
To start with, what would you say, Helen?
I think definitely the boy should be told. In the event he finds it out from someone else, it will be a frightening shock to him and may scar his whole thinking of the honesty and fairness of these two people that he loves, especially in view of what she writes in the letter, that he wants to follow in the father's footsteps. It shows the closeness of that family unit. I think she should point out to him that they selected him. He came from choice, and how deeply they love him. Even though a boy of 14, it isn't a good age. It would be far better if they could wait until he's older, more mature. Because a boy in the adolescent age might resent their not telling him and feel that he's been betrayed.
Yes.
On the other hand, if they tell him that they think he's wise enough now, old enough, perhaps it'll give him a sense of confidence in the fact that now they're revealing the secret. It's not an easy decision, but I would certainly tell him rather than have a third person tell him that.
Well, I think that wraps up our answers on this letter. Freeman, what's next?
Here we have one from, let's see, Mrs. Buxom. Let's see what Mrs. Buxom has to say. Dear Barbara Dean, my husband is mad at me because I've gained 20 pounds in the last 6 months. He has closed all my charge accounts, so I can't buy any new clothes. And he gives me just enough money for the grocery budget. I've let out all my dresses, but I can't wear most of them unless I get a new girdle. Would it be fair if I borrowed the money from the grocery budget for a new girdle?
Well, definitely. I would say it would be very fair, but this problem of weight is one that is a serious problem to all women, and she should consult her doctor if it's a serious problem. But we might add, if she cut down on the grocery bill, maybe she'd cut down on the poundage.
I found out that actually that weight problem is typical of the American women.
Is that right?
Yes, because I think that many American women are very obsessed by by being fat, and by they always watch out what they are eating, you see, and all that. And actually, I think that only the women like to be thin.
Are you sure of that?
I am sure that more particularly 9 men out of 10 do not like thin women.
Well,
I don't.
There is encouragement. Say, while we're on the subject of women, I noticed when you came in, you didn't kiss our hands in an introduction. Being a Frenchman, isn't that the accustomed thing to do? Kiss hands in greeting?
No.
It isn't?
No. I think it's the American conception of a Frenchman.
Oh, I see.
But I don't think the Frenchmen click their heels, you see, and bow stiffly and kiss the hands of each lady they meet, not any more than the American man does it. I don't think so.
Well, it's a wonderful old romantic custom, but the handshake is just as good. Freeman?
All right, we'll go on to the next question. And this one is from Left Out. Dear Barbara Dean, my husband and I have been married for 10 years. We have no children. In the past 6 months, I have been very unhappy because my husband has changed toward me. He comes home late, is irritable, and refuses to say where he has been. I think there's another woman in the picture. What can I do?
Well, it could be many, many things. On the face of it, she isn't sure of the other woman. Dr. Matheny, what would you say?
Well, I think you've put your finger on it, that this jumping to the conclusion that it's another woman is perhaps a measure of the wife's own feeling of insecurity. It's something she is worried about, that she can't hold her husband. But really, there's a great many other reasons why a man might suddenly become worried and irritable. It may be his health, in which case blaming him and charging him with infidelity is not going to solve the problem. Or perhaps he's having trouble with business. Perhaps he has any number of other kinds of problems. And perhaps she hasn't been too good a listener through the years. Perhaps he doesn't feel able to share it with her.
That's right. Don't you think that many times when there are any problems between a man and a woman who are people are married, to a large extent to the fault of the woman if she is not able to hold her man?
Well, I think a failure to listen to your man is a good way to lose him.
The solution would be for her to sit down and talk it over with him and come to an understanding, and perhaps they could recreate another relationship and rekindle the love that once existed.
And also to look into herself, how she
Yes.
has been behaving and reacting over
How
the
much,
past. Yes.
how much at fault she has been, and I
Right.
think a frank discussion might solve that marriage.
Well, there's your answer. Now, Freeman,